Yes. So, all are present. I hope you've got your books with you. Today, we are going to read from supplementary, and I'm sure you will enjoy this story, The Selfish Giant. Some of you might have read, and it's none other than Oscar Wilde, very famous writer, and I hope you enjoy. And the story is also very famous. I think you had this in Hindi also. Huh? Maybe in sixth standard you had the same story in Hindi, isn't it? Yes, you had. Okay, the selfish giant. So, are your books ready with you? Yes. Selfish. You know the meaning of selfish? जो अपने बारे में सोचता है, the person who thinks only about himself. He doesn't think about others. Selfish. No, we should not be selfish. So we are unhappy. We don't make friends if we are selfish. But if we share with others, we don't think about just about ourselves, then people are happy with us, and we also feel happy. We feel at home, isn't it? At home means not at home, but at home means we are comfortable with ourselves. We are at peace. Now here, this giant story we are going to read. Giant, a big person, huge, large person. In stories, you come across giant to show evil or bad. Of course, here we'll find this selfish giant. In the beginning, he was selfish, but then something realization took place, and at the end of the story, he becomes a friendly giant. He no longer. So, if I say bad giant, I can't use that word because this is example that giants can be good or bad, depends. Now you have got bored. Bored means present tense is bear, B-E-A-R, bear, not bhalu, but verb, bear, Shahana. Okay, bear, bored, and third form is born, B-O-R-N, not born. I was born, but here born means Shahana. Okay, I have borne many grudges, or many, I have borne lots of pain. मैंने सहा है, I have, with perfect tense, born, B-O-R-N. Here it is bear, and this is past tense, bored. Okay. Then next you are Oga. This is pronounced as Oga, O-U-G-U-H. Okay, Oga. Okay, so this is how it is pronounced. Oga, a giant. We come across this word in fairy tales and in legends. A place of giants. Okay, where the giants are, they eat humans. Okay, that feeds on humans. Oga. Okay. Then gruff voice. Gruff means rough voice. Gruff, prosecuted, punished in this court. Okay, prosecuted. He was prosecuted in the court. Prosecuted. Okay, that word you come across. Trespass also will come. To enter somebody's boundaries or campus without permission. When you enter somebody's garden, somebody's boundary without permission, that is called trespass, and you can be punished for that. Okay, prosecuted for that. Okay, then frost, the upper layer of ice, the ice that forms due to freezing or when the temperature is below freezing point, then this become this frost. Okay, frost forms. Then ceased means stop, not cease as E-I-Z is, not that cease to capture, but ceased यहाँ पे to stop, ceased. Okay, that program ceased. Okay, then casement, the windows are open in such a way like doors. Okay, they open, the hinges are vertical, so they open in the same way as a doors open. Okay, so that is casement. Okay, this is clear. Now, selfish giant. Some of you might have read the story, is it? Yes. हाँ, अब कौन सा 7 feet is okay? Okay. Some people say giant. He's giant. He is very tall. Yes, 7 feet. Yeah, correct. Okay. Now I'll show you this picture. It is there in your handouts and presentation. Okay, in presentation you'll come across this giant. Okay, selfish giant. Here you find children also. His garden. Okay, We'll read and find out. In Hindi, Hindi lessons maybe you must have read in your Hindi book. Yes, मैम जूम बढ़ाओ. अच्छा मैम जूम बढ़ाओ. इससे ज्यादा जूम नहीं होगा. दिख तो रहा है. It is visible, isn't it? Yes, it is visible. The selfish giant. You have opened your books? Every afternoon, as they came from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. This giant had a beautiful garden, and when children returned from the schools, on the way, they played in the giant's garden. They loved giant's garden. It was a large, lovely garden with soft green grass. Here and there where the grass stood beautiful flowers like stars, and there were 12 peach trees, and in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of flowers of pink and pearl. And in the pearl, I hope you know white, a pearl, and in the autumn bore rich fruit. Oh, it's gone. Bore rich fruit. And the birds sang on the trees and sang so sweetly. Nowadays, if you go around in gardens, you will hear the koyals coo. So cuckoo singing and sang so sweetly that the children used to stop their games in order to listen to them. How happy we are here, they cry to each other. Here, they're crying to each other. Of course, here you find the giant also, but in the absence of giant, these children went to his garden and they loved it, the flowers and those fruit trees and peach trees and the birds singing on those trees. One day the giant came back. He had been to visit his friend, the Cornish ogre. Cornish ogre is in UK, Cornish wall. Okay, ogre. Of course, I've told you the giants who ate humans. They fed on humans, and it's only in fairy tales and legends we come across this. And had stayed with him for 7 years. So he had been visiting his friend, Cornish ogre, and for 7 years he had been away from his garden, and now he had returned. And then he saw the children playing in his garden. When he arrived, he saw the children playing in his garden. What are you doing here? He cried in a rough, gruff voice, and the children were scared when they heard his voice. That also in anger. My own garden is my garden, said the giant. Anyone can understand that, and I will not allow nobody to play in it with myself only. So he built, and the children all rushed out. They were scared, small children. They were so happy, and when they heard this loud voice of a big giant, they were very scared and they terrified. They ran away from there, and after that he built a high wall all around his garden and put up a notice board also. And what was written in the notice? Trespassers will be prosecuted, will be punished. Trespassers means those who enter without permission will be punished. He was a very selfish giant. The poor children, now nowhere to play. They tried to play on the road, and the road was very dusty and full of hard stones, and they did not like it. They used to wander round the high walls. They used to go around. They were unhappy on the streets, on the roads. When their lessons were over, and talk about the beautiful garden inside, how happy we were when we were there, they said to each other. Then the spring came, during spring, the flowers bloom. All kinds of flowers, roses and jasmine and all kinds of flowers. The jasmine nowadays we find in summer season, but other flowers, there are different kinds of flowers. So during spring, during winter, our winter are just like spring in India, isn't it? In north. North means not in Himalayas. I'm talking about the plains, northern plains. Then the spring came, and all over the country there were little blossoms and little birds. Only in the garden of the selfish giant, it was still winter. The birds did not sing. There were no flowers, no children, and the trees forgot to blossom. Once a beautiful flower puts its head out from the grass. And when it saw the notice board, it was so sorry for the children that it slipped back into the ground again and went off to sleep. The only people who were pleased were snow and frost. Now here snow and frost have been personified. Personified means when the writer uses them as humans or like they are living beings. Okay, so only the people who were very happy were frost, snow and frost. Spring has forgotten this garden, they cried. So we will live here all the year round. The snow covered up the grass. Beautiful description of the snow. Okay, the snow covered the grass with her white cloak. Cloak, these kings wear, kings and queens that shawl like behind. So it had covered the snow, had covered the grass with had covered the grass, and it has been compared metaphor with white cloak. A metaphor, a white cloak, and the frost painted the trees silver, not green but silver. They were also covered with white ice and snow. Then they thought to invite a friend, north wind, like storm wind blowing, cold, very cold, and then the wind, north wind came to stay with them in the garden and blew the chimney pots down. There was the sound, loud sound, and they talked, frost, snow, and the north wind. This is a delightful spot. They were very happy. Delightful means being happy. Delightful spot, he said. We must ask Hail on a visit, and then they decide to invite Hail. Hail, hail, snow and hail. ये गिरता है ना, क्या बोलते हैं? ओले. In Hindi we call it ole. So the hail came every day for 3 hours. He rattled that sound, loud sound when it falls. It rattled. He rattled, personified. He rattled on the roof of the castle. Castle means haveli, bada sa ghar, haveli, castle. Till he broke most of the slates. Slates are, earlier we used to have slates. Pieces. If you have happened to see pictures of British time, okay, to keep the place cool or the water doesn't stand, they used to have slates, okay, not roofs like we have now. We used to have, and whichever slate broke, they used to change that. So slates, it broke. That hail fell so hard and so loud. The wind was blowing, there was snow, and there was hail that even the slates broke. And then he ran round and round the garden as fast as he could go. This hail. He was dressed in grey. You can imagine, personification. He was dressed in grey and his breath was like ice. I cannot understand why the spring is so late in coming, said the selfish giant as he sat at the window and looked out at the cold white garden. Now he was selfish. He didn't want children, so now he was feeling lonely. He was sad because no flower blossomed or bloomed, no tree bloomed in his garden. Blossomed, when I'm using that means flowering, bloomed, becoming green and with flowers. I hope there will be a change in weather, he said to himself. But the spring never came, nor the summer. The autumn grew golden fruit in every garden. But to the giant's garden, she gave none. He is too selfish, she said. So it was always winter there. And the north wind and the hail and the frost and the snow danced about through the trees. One morning, the giant was lying awake in bed when he heard some lovely music. He couldn't believe. After such a long time, he heard melody sound, the lovely music, sweet music. It sounded so sweet to his ears that he thought it must be the king's musicians passing by. It was really only a little linnet. Linnet is singing bird. You know, here below, if you have got book, you will find a brownish songbird found in Europe. Linnet singing outside his garden or in his window. Sorry, in his outside his window. But it was so long since he had heard a bird singing in his garden that it seemed to him to be the most beautiful music in the world. Then the hail stopped. With this music, the hail also stopped, dancing over his head, and the north wind ceased. It also stopped roaring, the sound, loud sound, roaring. Lions, tigers roar, and then there is a loud sound, loud like a traffic roar of the traffic here. Roar, yes. I can see your smileys and all. Yes, it's symptom. Yes, symbols that you are feeling sad for him. Yes, but don't make. Okay, fine. Okay, so now it stopped. This dancing, the hail and the roaring of the wind, and the delicious sweet perfume came to him through the open window of casement, or the open casement, not window here, casement, the window, of course, that the part of the window that opens, it's a casement. I believe the spring has come at last, said the giant. He was very happy after such a long time. He had been waiting. He was feeling so lonely, cold and lonely there. And now he was full of pleasure, happiness, joy, and delighted. And so he ran out, he jumped out of his bed and looked out. And what did he see? There are questions, but I will continue. Okay, I'll continue second part. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. He saw a wonderful sight. Through a little hole in the wall, the children cracked in. Creep ka past is cracked. They had cracked in, and they were sitting in the branches of the trees. If you have got this book, you can see here picture, colorful picture in your book. Children sitting in each branches of the tree. Yes, in the branches of the trees. In every tree he could see there was a little child. And the trees were so happy, so glad to have the children back again that they had covered themselves with blossoms. The snow, that hail and the wind had all disappeared. They had left the garden. But now it seemed as if the spring had come. There were blossoms. Trees were blossoming, blooming, and the branches were waving their arms gently in happiness. And above the children's head, they were waving these branches. The birds were flying about and twittering, twittering to each other with delight in happiness. The flowers were looking up through the green grass and now laughing. It was a lovely scene. Only in one corner, it was still winter. It was the furthest corner of the garden, and in it was standing a little boy. But in the corner, in the whole garden, there was spring. Okay, there was happiness. Children were sitting and they were laughing and talking to each other. There were birds twittering. But in one corner, there was still winter. Because there one boy was standing, a small boy. He was so small that he could not even reach up the branches of the tree. And he was wandering. Okay, WANDERING, wandering, wandering. Oh, that wonder, WONDER is wonder. I wonder, doubtful, wonder. And this is wander, okay, pronunciation, wander. And he was wandering, roaming, wandering all around, crying bitterly, sorry, बहुत ज़्यादा रो रहा था, crying. The poor tree was still covered with frost and snow. The tree under which the child was standing wanted to reach, but he could not. He was crying, and the tree was also covered with snow because the child was not happy. The poor tree was still covered with frosted snow, and the wind had left the garden, but it stayed here around this tree, blowing and roaring above it. Climb up, little boy, said the tree. See personification. Climb up, said the tree. And it bent. The tree even bent its branches down as low as it could. But the boy was too tiny, too small, it could not reach. And now we find change in the giant. Okay, such a long absence of the children, of the spring, now made him realize that he had been wrong. So his heart melted as he looked out. How selfish I have been, he said. Now I know why the spring would not come here. I will put that poor little boy on top of the tree. Then I will knock down the wall that I had constructed around my garden. I'm going to knock it down. And my garden shall be the children's playground forever and ever. He was really very sorry. He was regretting. He was sorry for what he had done. Yes, part is not what is this? What are you talking? Mukesh, Sutan, please pay attention. And Mukesh, you are talking nonsense. Why are you going on talking nonsense? Talking among yourself and Ramchandra, who is Ramchandra? Stop talking nonsense, otherwise you'll be blocked. You too. Blocked forever, you'll be blocked. Mukesh, behave yourself and don't talk nonsense. Here, don't pay attention, and then you'll give wrong answers. When your answers come, Mukesh, you will be giving you wrong answers, writing wrong answers, and now you're not paying attention. You're thinking we are wasting time here. Huh? Behave yourself, otherwise you'll be blocked. Don't talk nonsense here. I hope you've understood till here. So the giant's heart melted. He repented what he had done. He ran outside to help this small child who was unhappy. So he went out. So when he came out, he opened the front door very softly so that the children would not stop playing, and went out into the garden. But when the children saw him, they were so frightened that they all ran away. And the garden became winter again. As soon as they left the garden, it was winter. Only the little boy did not run, for his eyes were all full of tears, that he did not see the giant coming. And the giant stole up behind him and took him gently in his hands and put him into the tree. And as soon as he had done that, he had put the child in the tree, it broke at once into blossoms, and the birds came and sang on it. And the little boy stretched out his both arms and flung them round the giant. Flinka passed and flung and kissed him. And the other children, when they saw that the giant was not wicked any longer, they all came running back. And with them came the spring. Once again, spring came. "It is your garden now, little children," said the giant. And he took a little axe and knocked down the wall. And when the people were going to market at 12 o'clock, we should not say 12 o'clock, we should either say noon or midnight, 12 noon or 12 midnight. Okay, but it's a story. Okay, we do find somewhere in stories those dialogues where, according to the character, they are spoken. But we should, while speaking, we should pay attention to this. This is 12 noon or 12 midnight. They found the giant playing with the children, and the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. So the garden had once again become beautiful blossoms and flowers. Flowers, of course, flowers are called blossoms also, and these birds, beautiful birds, all day long they played. And in the evening they came to the giant to bid him goodbye. "But where is your little companion?" the giant said. The boy I put into the garden. So the boy, the small child, the boy, small boy did not return. And the giant wondered where was he. So next day when they came, the boy was not there. Where is your little companion? The boy I put in the tree. The giant loved him the best because he had kissed him. You must tell him. We don't know, said the children. He has gone away. We didn't see him after that. You must tell him to be sure and come tomorrow, said the giant. But the children said that they did not know where he lived and had never seen him before. And the giant felt very sad. He did not return. Other children came, they played all around the garden, and the garden was full of blossoms and the birds. It was no longer, there was no longer sadness there or winter there. And every afternoon when the school was over, the children came and played with the giant. But the little boy whom the giant loved was never seen again. The giant was very kind to all the children, yet he longed for that small boy. Okay? He longed to see him, but he never saw again. The giant was very kind now to all the children. And he longed for his little friend and often spoke to him. How I would like to see him, he used to say. Years went by, and the giant grew very old and very weak and feeble. He could not play anymore. He sat on his huge armchair. You can see in your book also this armchair he's sitting. Yes, in the book you have this. Okay, you have your books with you, so you can see there colorful pictures you have in your book. So he was very kind to them, but he would miss the boy whom he loved. The giant was very kind to all the children, yet he longed to see his friend. How I would like to see him. Years went by and he became old and feeble. He could not play anymore, so he sat in his armchair and watched the children as they played games, admired his garden. I have many beautiful flowers, he said, but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all. Yes, flowers of all, he said. One winter morning, he looked out of the window and as he was dressing, he did not hate the winter now, but he knew it was merely the spring. Now he did not hate because he knew that if winter came, there's a saying, the spring is not far away. So he knew that spring was asleep and soon it would come, and that the flowers were resting in winters. Suddenly, he rubbed his eyes in wonder and looked and looked. He could not believe. Rubbing means he could not believe his eyes. It certainly was a marvelous, a beautiful, fabulous, wonderful sight. In the farthest corner of the garden was a tree quite covered with lovely blossom, beautiful blossoms all over the tree. Its branches were golden, and silver fruit hung from them. And beneath it stood a little boy whom he had loved. He had become old, but this boy still, he was surprised to see him as a child that he had seen the first day. Downstairs, the giant ran in great joy out into the garden. He hastened quickly, fast, rapidly across the grass and came near the child. And when he came quite close to his face, it grew with anger. As his sight said to him, who had dared, now this is old English, who has का old English में hath करते AHATH. If you read Bible, you will come across this, because old English is still in those Bible. Of course, it has been translated and simplified, but in old English, okay, for has, they write hath, dare to wound thee. Thee is also you. Thee is in old English, they use, for you, they used to use thee, THEED. Who has dared to wound you, thee? For on the palms of the child's hands were the prints of 2 nails, symbolic. So God himself, Jesus Christ, remember? So this child was incarnation of Jesus Christ. And the prints of 2 nails were on his little feet also. Who had dared to wound thee? Cried the giant. Tell me, I may take my big sword and slay him, kill him. Slay him, kill him. Nay, again, Old English, no, answered the child. But these are the wounds of love. He was incarnation of Jesus Christ. Who art thou? Again, who are you? Art means are and thou means you. Okay, Old English. Said the giant, and a strange awe of fear fell on him. And he knelt before the little child. Fear means of amazement mixed with amazement. Okay. Awe fell on him, and he knelt before the child, and the child smiled on the giant and said to him, You let me play once in your garden. Today you shall come with me to my garden, that is paradise. I hope heaven. Paradise is heaven. And when the children ran in that afternoon, they found the giant lying under the tree, all covered with white blossoms. You have this picture in your books, isn't it? Yes. Here also I have in this slide you have this picture. Yes. Okay. This giant, when he saw this children playing from his, he's so happy to see the children playing. Can you see here? Okay. So yes. So over. Liked it? Did you like this story? Now, children, if you are going through this presentation, you'll find that the first part of the story, the question answers have been solved. Okay, so you can write those question answers. Okay, only those question answers, and next afterwards we will do the second parts. That please, children, don't burden yourself too much. Like I'm telling you, these questions that are given on the after at the end of the first part of the story have been solved in your worksheet. Okay, first worksheet. Now worksheets are included in the presentation. When you're looking up at presentation, after that there is handout. Either in handout or separate worksheet, you will find these questions and answers. You don't need to write now from your book sum. Don't write. Okay, don't do two things. Okay? If we are doing, we will do. We of course after the end of the story we can orally solve. We can discuss the answers, but solving your worksheets is most important because those questions have been covered in your worksheets, so you don't need to do them twice. Okay, children, I hope this is clear to you. Yes, thank you, ma'am. I can see you all thanking me. So question answers are here. Okay, so first parts question answers are already solved, so you do them in your notebook so that and read them and do so that you understand. Okay, today I will share with you, so my checking will also be very easy because they have been solved. So I'll just put tick mark and signature tick mark, but I'll see your neatness and you read them because in exams, in your tests, when you get, you should be able to write them. Okay, so and if there is some way you find it's wrong or you have to edit them, so you can do that. Okay, no need to just write the answers. Okay, write the question and the answer, the first part, only first part. Okay, and then we'll discuss second part day after tomorrow, and after that you write the second part. So one at a time. So time is over. Bye, children. Yes, thank you for being patient, but I was angry with that Mukesh, talking nonsense with his friends. Don't do that. We are here. You have to utilize every minute. You should not talk nonsense. You can ask me questions, your doubts, but not nonsense. Got it? Yes. So bye. Complete your work. Today I will share this assignment. So day after tomorrow it should be complete. Some children have still not completed. Bye.